Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's your favourite little period positive pixie Bryony here, and today I have a very special guest with me. This is Robyn, and I've asked Robyn to come and talk to you guys with me today because I've really wanted to do a video for a while now talking about periods with kids who are autistic. And Robyn here is an author who has written her own book called The Autism Friendly Guide to Periods. Also, you can hear my voice is going, I really apologise for that. But thank you, Robyn, so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
So I've got a few questions I'm going to ask Robyn them in a moment, and hopefully you guys really enjoyed this video, and I also really encourage you to go and look at this book because it is a fantastic guide to periods in general. I have to say, not even just for autistic kids, but for anyone who wants to talk to their children about periods, this is a really great book. So my first question for you, Robyn, is what inspired you to write this book?
Well, that's a good question. So I'm autistic myself, and I do a lot of training in schools and colleges and places like that, and one of the issues that came up, that people were asking me about, was periods and puberty, and also gender, because many autistic people identify not just in the binary part of the gender spectrum, but as maybe transgender or genderqueer or non-binary, and obviously lots of resources talk about being a girl and being a woman, and that might not be how somebody identifies or that someone is comfortable with. And so there seemed like there was a need for a period book that was, originally I called it non-gendered, but that seemed to confuse people. Once people read the book, they were fine, but basically it's gender inclusive. So the idea is that I haven't used the words woman or girl. I talk about people who have a womb, fallopian tubes, ovaries and vaginas, and people who have periods. So there is a big difference between sex and gender. So your sex is either male, female or intersex, but your gender is about how you feel and how other people perceive you. And so people of different genders can have periods. You could be, say, born with female genitalia and realise later on that you are trans, and then transition to be male, but during that transition you might still be having periods. So it's really important to me that when people read my book that they
feel included.
Yeah, they feel included, but also that it doesn't it doesn't shy away from explaining the biological facts, but I think a lot of people sort of get hung up with gender and sex and don't quite understand the difference.
Yeah, and I mean, I've read the book myself, and you're right, it is gender neutral, but it's not screamingly obvious. It's very much about periods and it's factual, but it wouldn't put somebody off who was transgender or non-binary. So my second question for Robyn is, how do periods affect autistic people differently to those who aren't autistic?
Well, that is a great question, and maybe a slightly complicated answer. So,
yes.
Autistic people are human, obviously, like everybody else, and so people that have wombs and fallopian tubes and ovaries and vaginas generally also have periods that start around the same time, and they go through the menopause. So all the sort of biological stuff is the same. However, what can be different for autistic people is understanding information. And one thing I found in my sort of research for the book was that a lot of information wasn't very literal. And so things like on the back of a tampon packet, there's the diagram of how to insert a tampon. And for me anyway, the picture of the womb and vagina was confusing. I didn't understand how on earth they got to that point and how that represented something inside me, and that was confusing.
Yeah.
But
because I've seen with your book, the reason why I think this is such a great book just in general is because you're right, it is very literal and factual. So there are some really great pictures in here and diagrams of how to put a pad on, what the blood will actually look like, and the sorts of things that you want to know before you start your period, but they don't put because there's this taboo around blood and periods, and it's so disgusting, which annoys me a lot. And it must be really confusing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because if you're very literal minded, you might think the periods are blue. If the only menstrual blood you have, or fake menstrual blood you've seen, is on a TV advert or an advert for sanitary products, and so that was one thing, being very literal. And with the sort of, I realised that some people, obviously, they can find it overwhelming, and that's true for autistic people too. Certainly, lots of sort of graphic images could be overwhelming. So what I created was a flap frame, which is a page you can cut out of the book, and then you can cut the flaps out, and the flaps are on a grid.
Is that your frame?
There it is, yeah. And the pictures within the book are all on this grid, so you can just lay this over, and then you can just
lift them up.
Yeah, lift them up. Yeah, and that way, then you can choose how much you see or how much you don't see. So to give people a bit of control, that's quite important. I think also autistic people, what they told me, I did a survey of 100 autistic people, and they told me that sensory issues were really
I was going
to
to ask about that, yeah.
So before I started this project, I didn't know a lot about reusable menstrual products. Like, I knew nothing, really. And I learned from other autistic people how important it was, because people were telling me, the biggest thing for me is the sensory issues, and I use cloth pads or I use menstrual cups. Like, people really were very forthcoming, and I'm really grateful to those people that answered that survey. Thank you, because without you, I wouldn't have known anything about it at all.
Yeah.
So I applied to speak at the Society for Menstrual Cycle Research Conference, which was in Atlanta in Georgia. And I went to this conference and I knew nobody. And I thought, oh, this is going to be like awful. And but I made 120 friends. Everyone was so nice. But also I met somebody from Lynette who gave me a menstrual cup. And that was life-changing for me. Now, to start off with, I couldn't quite figure it out. It was difficult. But then I watched some of Bryony's videos on Precious Style pads.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm kind of getting this. And as an autistic person, one thing I'm good at is collecting loads of information about stuff. And so I just watched pretty much probably 75% of your videos.
There's quite a few out there.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them, and I watched them, and then I started reading, and I had a few sort of friends who helped me out, and I ordered a Maluna.
Yeah.
Because it's made out of TPE, which is obviously softer, and I started with that, and once I got the hang of it, and what I found was, for me anyway, and this might help other autistic people, is that I couldn't tolerate a cup inside me for longer than about 5 minutes to start off with. And so every day I just had my 5 minutes of having a menstrual cup inside me, and gradually I increased the amount of time, and then it was, I can do it but not out of the house. And then the more confident and comfortable I got, and then I could wear it all the time. And now I don't use pads at all. I have I've got one of those ones that are sold in Sainsbury's. I've forgotten the name of the pink ones.
Oh, the Intermina.
Yeah.
Lily cup.
Yeah. So I've got one of those that I carry in my coat for any kind of emergencies. And then I've gone back to the Lynette because I found the TPE was too soft. But it was such a good introduction.
I started out with a TPE cup as well, but that's so interesting. I never knew that you could actually feel it inside.
Yeah.
That you found that as an issue.
And see, because everybody said, "Oh, you shouldn't feel it inside."
Yeah.
What I realised was I'm not really feeling the cup. I'm feeling that my muscles.
There's
are in
the
a different
presence
place.
somewhere there. Yeah. So really hypersensitive to that, and in general probably quite a lot more sensitive to textures and things.
And smells, and because a lot of tampon. Well, I don't actually know much about tampons, to be fair, but definitely sanitary pads.
Yes.
They put perfume and stuff in them.
Chemicals.
Do they do that with tampons?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and because a lot of autistic people were saying this is a problem, and I hadn't really realised that. So obviously, autism is a spectrum. And the way you experience the sensory world is a spectrum. No two people are going to be the same. And some people are hypersensitive, meaning they take in too much information through their senses, and it could vary sense to sense. Like you might have hypersensitive hearing, for example, but not be hypersensitive when anything else. Or it might be that you're hypersensitive when you're stressed, for example. But then there's hyposensitivity, which is being undersensitive to sensory input. And I hadn't appreciated, because I'm not particularly hypersensitive to smell. I hadn't appreciated that actually it really irritated me, the smell of sanitary pads.
It can irritate even non-autistic people.
Yeah.
I never like the smell of it either, so I can imagine it's worse.
But yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, and actually now being able to use a menstrual cup, I found that that was kind of life-changing. It just made periods so much easier. There was less mess, or at least the mess was contained.
Thumbs up for menstrual cups.
Yes, thumbs up for menstrual cups. And so that was kind of the key thing. But also, autistic people told me, obviously, periods are part of a menstrual cycle, and once your periods begin, you're always somewhere within the menstrual cycle. And people told me about PMDD, which I think you guys have talked about before on the channel, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and PMS, premenstrual syndrome, or PMT, premenstrual tension. And autistic people told me that often in that time, that they experience greater problems with executive functioning. So executive functioning is figuring out how you're going to do something, and what order you're going to do it, and when you're going to do it. So it's a bit like if you ran out of milk, for example, and you were going out, executive functioning is what you'd use to figure out, okay, I'm going to the cinema, I'm not going to take some milk with me and sit in the cinema because the milk is going to get warm and it's going to go off. So I'm going to go to the cinema, and then I'm going to go to the supermarket or a shop to buy the milk to take home. So that's basically what executive functioning is. And obviously periods have a lot of executive functioning skill involved in them, like making sure
when to change.
Yeah, exactly. And carrying a wet bag with you, and then remembering to put it in the washing machine. All that stuff is executive functioning. And autistic people told me that not only did they find the period executive functioning hard, but it impacted on everything. So if they were going to school or they're going to work, some people weren't able to make decisions. People really struggled with it to the point where they couldn't function in the same way that they do the rest of their lives.
Wow. That's really interesting to hear all those different ways that it really affects autistic people.
Yeah, I think those were the main things. I think also autistic people tend to be very detail oriented. Obviously everyone is different, no two people are the same, but each period is different. I mean, I think certainly I think that's evident in your vlogs. When you make
vlogs.
When you make vlogs about your periods, each time is different.
Well, I'm currently waiting for this one to turn up, and it's about 5 days late. So,
well, I hope it's not too painful. I hope it being late doesn't mean it's going to be worse.
We'll see on that front. So my final question for you, Robyn, is what advice would you give to any parents who are watching this that maybe have an autistic child and are thinking of addressing periods to them, whether it's male or female?
Great question. Well, I would stay away from using euphemisms and metaphors. Tell her how it is. If you can get a copy of my book and use it, that's brilliant, because it's got lots of photos of what periods look like. But you can also make that yourself. Like the photos in the book, we made it with water, food colouring and jam. So you could have an experiment. But I think that also it's important to tell kids that when you bleed as part of your period, it doesn't mean you're hurt. It's normal, because if you start periods when you're 9, the only time you might have seen blood is when you hurt yourself. When you have a period, you're not you're not damaged in some way. This is a function of your body. So I think that's really important. I think just answering any questions that they have in a really straightforward, literal way, and also planning. During the research for the book, I worked with quite a lot of kids, probably, I would say that maybe at least 60, but it could have been 100 quite easily. So as well as the online survey, I did some work with young people, some who were they were all high school age, some just about to start their periods, some people who, I would say most people were already on their periods. But it was important for me to get their perspective and to learn from them. And they had 2 main worries, which was that they were going to start bleeding without them knowing, and it was going to go everywhere, and it was going to be really embarrassing at school.
I think most kids have that worry, to be honest. I think I was worried about that too, but I can imagine it's worse. Yeah,
I think that's a very common worry, and also about the pain. They were really worried about that. And again, maybe being a detail-orientated person. So maybe because someone is detail-orientated, they might focus in more on oh, this is, this pain is going to happen. There are a lot of autistic people out there, and it's definitely not everyone, but lots of people can tend to catastrophize, which means that they think of the worst possible situation. So some of the pictures that the kids drew about like their period suddenly starting, their first period, to other people they might seem dramatic, but if your child is worried about something like that, then that worry to them is real. And so even if you think that maybe that's a bit over the top, that's what their fear is. And what I'd say is make a really clear plan, and with several options like a roadmap or a mind map of what you would do in these situations. And it could be the other big thing that autistic people told me that was important was period underwear. And you can wear period underwear all the time if you want.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really comfortable. So if you had a child who was particularly worried about their period starting suddenly, they could have a cloth pad and period underwear, and they'd be pretty well protected.
And it's comfortable too, because they're very breathable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so if that's their worry, don't just tell them, oh, don't be silly, because for them that's a real worry. And if you think of something you're frightened of and someone tells you not to be so silly, you know how that feels. Like, it's easy to dismiss a kid when they're worried sometimes if the worry seems like it's never going to happen. But just make a really clear plan with them. And the same with the pain, make a clear plan, but also really tell them, and hopefully everybody should know this who's watching this, we definitely will know it now, is that if the pain is so bad that you're not able to carry on with your normal everyday activities, then something is probably wrong and you should go and talk to your GP, because there are lots of conditions that could cause that, and your GP would be your first point of call, and you might be you've been referred to gynecologists.
Yes, and I would also say if they don't take it seriously or they want to just put you on the pill without exploring any further, then push them to actually send you and have those tests, to have a scan done.
Yeah.
And particularly with ultrasounds, make sure they do an internal one if possible. Younger kids they tend not to do this with, and I had a real fight to get them to do it with me, but I needed it done. But get them to do those scans and go and speak to a gynecologist, because there are multiple options other than the pill. So it's just important that sometimes you do need to push for that stuff. So at this point my camera decided to cut out and stop filming, but didn't tell me, so I didn't realise that until I got to the point where I was editing this footage. But fortunately Robyn and I were just finishing up, so thank you so much to Robyn for coming along and speaking about autism and periods. I think it was a really great talk, and I hope you guys found some interesting information there. Just before I finish this video up though, I just want to quickly say, we have merch! Yeah! It finally has landed. There are 3 different designs. There's this one, and this one, and this one. These hoodies are seriously soft as well, by the way. So all the designs come in t-shirts, white and black, and hoodies in a range of colours, and also on some mugs as well. So you can go onto the website. I'll put the link down below to the page where you can go and buy these t-shirts and hoodies and all the other merch products there. And they're in sizes small to, in the t-shirts, 2XL, and in the hoodies, 5XL. I really wanted to make sure that we were as size inclusive as possible, and those are the largest sizes that they do go up to. I will be doing a video specifically talking about the merch and kind of like the whole process of it, but I did want to let you guys know straight away, because I have had some people who are really excited and have seen the t-shirts around and been like, when are they going to come? So they are here, you can buy them, and they are print on demand, so once you buy it you will get it printed and it will be shipped out within a few days. So anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Do please subscribe to this channel and look out for the new video talking about the merch that will be coming up this week. Thanks so much guys, I'll see you later. Bye!